You guys having fun? You guys actually got a free comedy show. Actually, I just realized, on top of a discussion. Now the second half. You guys stick around. Is it past your bedtime? You're okay? Power. Power is here. That's all that matters. Is money here? Money still or Zayvon D. It's stern eyes, dollar bills. All I see, you're just a dollar sign to me. That's all you are. You're a dollar sign. All right. I'm going to introduce all of the panelists, and I'm going to give an introduction, of course, to Phoebe Robinson, who, in her defense, said that she did not know she could perform stand-up comedy. If she was asked, she would have. So there was, I blame Penn for this. But she has coming out with a book next month. You guys have to buy it. It's getting rave reviews called You Can't Touch My Hair, and other things I still have to explain. Hilarious. Stand-up comedian, writer, actress whose writings have been featured on The Village Voice, Daily Beast, Vanity Fair, New York Times. She created and starred in Refinery 29's web series Woke Bay, and alongside Jessica Williams of The Daily Show, she's the creator and co-star of the WNYC podcast, Two Dope Queens. New season just came out yesterday. They're number 3 on the comedy charts. Joe Rogan's number 2, some other villain's number 1. Dethrone these bastards and put Two Dope Queens number 1. And she has a new podcast, So Many White Guys. It's S-O-O-O. Okay, so everyone was asking me, like, I got all these Muslim guys, like, hey man, Phoebe Robinson, is she Muslim? And I'm like, she isn't Muslim, calm down. She is not Muslim yet. Ladies and gentlemen, Phoebe Robinson, Hasan, Negin Farsad, Mo Amer, give him a round of applause. Hasan answering the call of nature. Should we wait for him or should we just awkwardly start? Let's just start. We should see South Asian guilt to wash over him.
Absolutely.
Alright.
I'm gonna trip him.
Muslim on Muslim crime. That's Alright. Real talk, you guys are successful, you guys are privileged, you guys have worked your butts off, you guys are with the mainstream. But let's take it back to preschool. We're all people of color. There's a preschool moment for the ethnics where you think everyone eats with their hands and smells like turmeric and lentils, and then you go to preschool and you're like, what the F? Not everyone's wearing bata chuppals. People don't speak Urdu. What's happening? And in preschool, around age 4 and 5, us ethnics realize we are the minority and we are outsiders. Describe the moment when you guys knew you were the outsiders in the entertainment industry, or when you were made to feel like the outsiders.
Man, first of all, you've given me too much to comment on. I mean, when I was in school in Kuwait, I was learning multiple languages at the same time. In 3rd grade, I was about to go into pre-algebra in 4th grade, and I come to American ESL class, and 2 + 2 = 4. And then there's kids wanting to drag me into the restroom to check out Bloody Mary. I'm like, who the fuck is Bloody Mary, man? What kind of evil shit are you guys doing? You say Candyman 3 times, this evil demonic creature pops in the mirror. Like, I didn't know what the hell was going on in America, and I didn't know what was cool, what's not cool. So yeah, I knew I was different right out the gate. I mean, when I first came to the States, I was like, man, they don't know anything about us. They don't know anything about us. And when I became cool, when it was bring food to school day, and I told my mom, Arab mom to bring food to school, she cooked a buffet like the day before. Everybody's bringing like Walmart cookies and shit. Like my mom just tore it up. And I was just like, she went to the cafeteria and grabbed a trolley. Thanks for joining us, Hasan. I know,
It's okay.
It's not easy being British.
Thanks for coming on time. Entertaining all these rich white people decides you can take a piss in the middle of a show.
Yeah, that's
Thank you, Hasan. All right, keep going. No, but in the entertainment industry, right? So you always identify as an outsider. Like you're straight up, you are a refugee, and you're now open up for Chappelle.
Yes.
And all of us now, in some capacity, have been able to sit with the gatekeepers, right? And so, have you guys been made to feel in 2016 or recently, I still don't belong. I'm still that kid in preschool who is like doing calculus where everyone's doing 2 + 2.
I feel like I'm at my therapist.
Go ahead, jump in.
I guess auditioning for stuff, because I tend to it's never a love interest. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm never considered attractive. And then it's usually like sassy, street smart assistant who knows more than her boss is, but she likes to just be an admin for like just that kind of like. And it's like no one wants that for their life. So I get like a lot of that, and then sometimes when I do stand-up shows, I did this one show. It was like a few years ago, but I did this one show, and I think it was like maybe 5 guys on it and like 3 women. And the guy was running the show, so he's running the lineup. And this one woman went up, and she like killed or whatever. And then he was like, okay, so I'm gonna have a guy go next, and then you, because if it's like women back to back, people are gonna think this is like some weird women's show. And I was like, what, white guy?
Did you actually say it out loud?
Yeah, he said, yeah, and I was like, I go, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you ever say something that ignorant to me? He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, you can't hear yourself, cool. So that kind of stuff is really, I think the auditioning stuff is just where I go, oh, this is how you see me. And I'm like, I'm about to turn 32 next week, what? Yeah, I shaved, okay. So now I'm being asked, like, can you play 25? And I'm like, can I just be 32? Can I just be 32? It's fine. Like, my aids are still viable. Like, what is the issue? You know, people just act like if you're over 30 and you're a woman, you're literally dead. Like, you're on life support. And they're like, I'm gonna pull this plug unless you play 25. So that's...
There was a moment I had early on in the auditioning process where basically I went in for a commercial where I was going to be the woman standing in the back behind a casino table clapping. And I was very excited about this audition, as you might guess, and I got a call back because of how excellent I was at clapping in the background.
Mashallah.
Thank you. I'll be holding workshops later. And I got this call back, and the casting director says to me, like, Negin, you're so great. And I was like, I know, I'm a really excellent clapper. And she's like, but you know, it's just that you're too ethnic for this part. And if we go that route, you're not ethnic enough. And so, to which I said, like, I have some bronzer in my purse, let's do this thing. You know what I mean? We'll come out in brown face. But like, here, because in their mind, if they want someone who's ethnic, they have to be much darker, or like you have to be white. You can't be, like, it's very hard.
You can't be caramel mocha. It's
you have to be, it's very hard to be like ethnically ambiguous in this business or whatever. And so it's just hard to be ethnic, period, in this business. And the other thing is that, like, you know, a lot of times people will be like, oh, you know, you could pass for Greek or something, which is like maybe more acceptable. But
My Greek Wedding 3 starring Negin Farsad.
But like you know, the name, I feel like, you know, gives it away, where they just can't make you know, they can't disassociate me from my name, which is clearly ethnic, and clearly not Greek or whatever. So that, you know, that early on was probably, and that's sort of why I realized, like, oh, I gotta do my own shit, because if I keep auditioning to play the girl in the background clapping, like, I'm never gonna get that, you know, coveted part.
Wait, hold on, guys. Let's see it if we have to believe it. Negin, show the clap.
That was so good.
Still ethnic, too ethnic. The head was moving too much. So the struggle is real, and you mentioned you get locked into the sassy black friend,
Right.
and Negin says you have to do your own shit. Hasan did his own shit, Homecoming King. You guys are all doing your own stuff. But let's talk about, like, there's certain narratives that are still toxic. I see it in the industry also, different types of industries. I call it, it's like its own fetish group. Like if it's like a category on Netflix, I call it the Muslim Orientalist Pornocopia fetish, which is like brown woman, caramel mocha or dark, in Middle Eastern Arabesque country, oppressed, married, veiled in some capacity, hijab or niqab, forcefully married to brown man who somehow oppresses her. Throw in some, you know, I don't know, throw in some kebabs, throw in a cousin who might join ISIL or Al-Qaeda, you need violence. Violence is always good. Husband oppresses her. In comes in white man from usually, the West. She falls in love with him. He falls in love with her. He unleashes his, Excalibur penis, which saves her somehow. She gets saved. She comes here. Everything's good, and somehow the cousin ends up blowing himself up. So every time I try to give these tropes, is that your life?
What movie are you watching? I haven't seen that movie.
You do pay for it. But it's these tropes,
I'd be
man.
in it.
It's like we're talking about. Timothy Straw has. Because you can be the white guy with the Excalibur.
Very ambiguous. Yeah, you don't know what the hell I am.
But we talk about this type of this fetish that we get, right? When you pitch this stuff. I'm serious. Like I pitch this stuff, and literary agents, like their eyes widen, and they get aroused, right? And they feel like they're having orgasmic responses. And I'm like, is it a suicide bomber? Does he kill himself? I'm like, calm the f down. And so, these narratives. How do you challenge them? How do you break them? And is it working? Hasan.
Oh yeah. So you're talking about poverty porn.
Poverty porn.
Yeah, poverty porn is very popular because I think, unfortunately, a lot of the person of color narratives have to have really high stakes, and that's what poverty porn is. So if it's like a black lead, it's like, oh, he's got to be in the track, and he's got to be slanging crack, and then you're like, oh yeah. Like there can't be a black version of girls. But I think Issa Rae's breaking that. I think slowly. The only way
new shows coming out on HBO.
Yeah, the only way to sort of break that narrative is to write it ourselves, I think.
Yeah!
Now, you think it's still working because it's 2016 and you're still getting cast, or people are still trying to cast you as a sassy black friend who comes in and brings down the house and gives Steve Martin his funk injection.
Well, I think part of that happens because of racism, but there's always I act, but I'm not a working actor where that's my main job. So I can be much more selective about what I go out for. And there are a lot of times with my agents, they won't say me the super trifling stuff, but they'll say me some things. I'm like, I can't do it. I'm a feminist. I can't do this trash. And they're like, all right, that's fine. Because I don't depend on I have podcasts, I do stand-up, I write. So there's a lot of other avenues where I'm getting my money. So I can be more selective. And I did the Jill Soloway pilot, I Love Dick with Kevin Bacon, which was have you guys seen it? It's so good. I should not even
Jill Soloway just went for Transparent.
Yeah, she's one for Transparent. She's a literal genius. But it was really nice because it's me, there's an Indian guy, there's a Latina, and it's not about oh, these are token hires. We are just everyday people in this world, but that's a very rare situation. So when I got asked to audition for that, I was so excited. But that's,
But let me push back on this, because you admitted that you have the privilege of other paychecks, right? You can diversify your portfolio. There's a lot of people in the stand-up game, the writing game, the acting game, who are man, I'm struggling and I'm starving. So what's the balance? Because a lot of people say strategy, man, just take that writing job and do Muslim porn, and then you'll get your foot in the door, and then you'll be an influencer, and then you can shift the scales. Versus, I'm gonna put my foot down and say I'm not doing that.
Well, I think it all depends on the person. I don't judge anyone for, I got asked to do a bunch of McDonald's audition chicken nuggets, and I went in for that.
Everyone loves chicken nuggets.
Yeah,
There's no
I
shame.
had to be girl. I'm what? 6 for 12.
That was more backstage, by the way.
Get that McDonald's money.
So I don't begrudge anyone for doing that, but I know that makes them not feel great.
Right.
That that's how they have to get their money. But it's if you want to be a working actor, really have that be your craft and your living, then how else are you going to, outside of creating your own web series and all other stuff, and that's expensive. That's really, people don't, there's a whole class element where there's a lot of people who have web series that are done well, and a lot of times there are people who their parents are supplementing them living in New York, and so it's yeah, they could just chill and do a web series and get, work off of that, but for a lot of people they can't do that. So I understand if you have to take a role that is beneath you. I'm not angry at you about it. It's a shitty system.
You want to check? Go ahead.
I mean, for me, I've been obsessed with stand-up ever since I was 14. That's when I started. I've been at this thing 20 years. And people, you know, my mentors have just been like, hey man, just, it's a marathon. You run your own race, you write for yourself, and as Muslims, we've done a really crappy job. Really horrible. We have the worst publicists on the planet. We are the worst at and you know, there's everybody else expressing who we are, not doing it ourselves, expressing where we come from and our background. So all I've been doing is just creating for myself and just continuing on this path, and whatever branches out, it branches out. And I've written a series, I've written a couple of movie scripts. I mean, who knows when they'll actually come to fruition, if ever. But I know at some point that training will pay off. Me personally, I've only had 2 auditions in my whole life for movies. I got really close to Will Smith. We were talking about this backstage for Focus, and I was supposed to play this guy named Farhad. And Adrian Martinez ended up booking it.
The Latinos, damn that. Always snatching the
He's
roles.
the discount double check guy. I was so deflated that he beat me out in that situation. I was like, fuck that, I'm going back to stand-up. I've just been very successful at that. I'm happy at it. I make a really good living doing stand-up comedy. I'm blessed and privileged to have it, and I just want to continue on that path and
Let's keep it macro for a second. I'll ask you this, and then I want to talk about self-criticism within our communities. Here are some interesting numbers. There is a, quote, epidemic of invisibility cited by researchers at the University of Southern California who analyzed more than 21,000 characters and behind-the-scenes workers on more than 400 films and TV shows released from September 2014 through August 2015. Here's some more stunning numbers. Here's the makeup of the Academy Award voters, about 5,000 members. 93% white.
Yep.
Average age, take a guess?
67.
63, smart crowd. And how many men? 76%, very good.
I'm good with that part. No, I'm just kidding.
PEN America released these numbers, I think last year. How much of the publishing industry do you guys think is white? 89%. Meg Robertson from HuffPo, nerd, well done. So when I hear those numbers and I see you guys on stage, and each one of you has admitted your privilege, maybe you guys are the unicorn. Like maybe you guys aren't the trends, right? And my question then is, look, you guys are all succeeding, there's people getting their own shows, but if you look at the gatekeepers, the wizards behind the curtains, it's still a very white world. So how do we become those wizards? Do we have to create our own Hogwarts? Like, do we train people? Do we wait 30 years? How do you do it?
For me, and this goes into this sort of ties into the arguments around privilege. A lot of times when those articles and stuff are presented, a lot of people from the sort of maybe like the Caucasian community are like, this is uncomfortable, I don't want to hear it. Right. To me, I'm just like, hey, look, nobody's trying to take away from Joseph Gordon-Levitt. We're just trying to say, can we add a lane for Phoebe Robinson or Negin, or can we just add an additional stage so there's just more options? The second layer to it is I just hope and wish that those types of outlets and those things are considered as brilliant and insightful and daring as what JGL does. So I hope, and like the things that I hope for is that the people laud Two Dope Queens as much as they laud the other stuff about how hard it is to be a white dude and meet someone in New York. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying, hey man, I'm not knocking your struggle. How do you find love? You fucking swipe for it, you bird. But give the other groups that are trying to come up their due credit and big up them. And that goes on not only the people that are doing the work, but I think the people that are writing about the work. Because social media is a motherfucker right now. Those blogs and those reviews can make or break the narrative around the shows. Donald Glover's Atlanta just came out, right? And one of the headlines was, can diversity work on TV? Like question mark. I'm like, that's the problem. That headline isn't going to be about another show that's like an all-white cast. Like, that's my problem. The show's great. The show's phenomenal, and the directing, the vision, it's all great. You can't give it that framing. It has to have that same level of credibility. Neil Brennan has this great quote. Neil is like the white whisperer because he works with Chappelle, right?
Yeah.
And he co-created He co-created Chappelle Show. This quote broke my heart. He was like, look man, I've got an opportunity to work with, you know, Seth Rogen, I got an opportunity to work with Kev Hart. And he's like, the hidden thing that I hear in meetings is, I get way more props for working with Seth Rogen than I do with Kevin Hart. And I'm like, but what about the money? What about the business? He's like, look man, black dollars just aren't as prestigious as white dollars. It's a difference between like, hey man, I went to HBS, Harvard Business School, versus I went to business school at Howard. Kevin Hart's stuff, and his money, and his base, and his arenas are looked at in that way. And that's the issue that I have.
Even though that
I
guy,
think it's shifting
Yes,
though.
no, it's not shifting. People are like, numbers are numbers. It's not numbers. Just because you're rich doesn't mean that you're given the same respect as those other dudes. And that respect matters. That's why actors of color complain about the Oscars so white stuff. Who gives a fuck about an award? It doesn't matter. It's about the credibility the award gives you in the system. As brown people, we know a degree from Berkeley or Stanford or wherever gives you credibility in the 9-to-5 workforce.
gives us equity.
Exactly.
We can get married.
So you gotta have So it's like, give those people not only the space, but the props they deserve for it.
Well,
And then,
Negin, we're saying wealth and power, right? So yes, there's a success, yes, there's individuals who are succeeding, but we still don't have the wealth and we don't have the power. And when few people do have the money, you're saying the system is still rigged up against you. So does that mean work within the system and pray to God America becomes great again? Or make your own Hogwarts? What's your take on
Well,
this?
I mean, I think that's a really good point because, you know, I sold a script in the last 8 months or whatever to a major studio. And you don't worry, they killed the production. So, not going anywhere. But the point is, I mean, whatever, paid a bunch of rent. But the deal is that the guy who bought the script at this studio was a black man and his assistant was a Latina, you know? So that is who's gonna help us. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, and then the other thing is like, I cannot wait to be so fucking loaded with money that I can then shower it upon other brown comedians so that I we're at this really awkward generational phase where there's no one above us. Like there's only so much Maz Jobrani can do, you know? Or there's only so, you know, there's literally, there's just, I didn't grow up on anyone. I can't look to anyone and be like, oh, that person, you know? There's not that, we don't have that. And so right now we're at this awkward generational phase where we have to just keep slogging, auditioning for McDonald's and Walmart. Yes, I did, and wait until it all happens. And I think the other point I wanted to make was forcefully making our stories mainstream because I think that can be more of a money generator. When we ourselves, you know, like my last film, Third Street Blackout, it came out in May. It's available on all the digital platforms.
Not shameless at all. That was awesome.
And it's the only, you know, it's probably the only rom-com that stars an Iranian-American Muslim lady. But we don't. It's not like I speak Farsi in it a couple of minutes. I mentioned that I'm Muslim once. It's not about that at all. It's just a fucking romantic comedy, you know? And so I feel
Lots
like...
of poop in it.
Lots of poop. But I feel like...
One person's super into that.
Safe space.
But I feel like that's something that we, you know, where it doesn't have to be about like the high stakes, like crack slinger. It's about something, you know, you can easily picture, you know, whatever. You know.
No, but okay, so you mentioned something. You guys, I know you guys personally. You just met Phoebe, who's very nice, by the way. Benevolent. You guys want to help, but let's be honest. Let's air some dirty laundry when it comes to the ethnics. It's not just the ethnics, you know. It's an election season, so everyone's worried about crime. Let's talk about minority on minority crime within the industry. There's something called the Highlander effect, which is a great 1986 movie where a French actor plays a Scotsman and the Scottish actor, Sean Connery, plays a Moroccan. You guys remember this movie? And there's a race of immortals, and basically throughout time they have to go behead the other person and ingest their powers until there can be only one, right? It's the Highlander theory. So if you're a minority in most of these places, right, I call it the Highlander theory that says, you know what? I'm down for you, I get it, but guess what? Daily Show will only have one brown dude and one Muslim dude named Hasan Minhaj. And they're not gonna open it up for another Muslim dude, because then it'll be two Muslims and get two Muslim.
But that's okay.
No, but so.
But then you don't need to go there. Like, my thing is, it's like there's so many places where it's like it can only be like one woman or one person.
But what happens when you get it from your own community? And the Highlander effect is, in order for me to achieve what Hasan has, it's not about collaboration. I have to kill this motherfucker. I have to chop off his head and drink his blood and ingest his powers.
That's why you're here tonight. That's why we're all here tonight, to watch you die.
No!
I understand what you're saying.
Touches Hasan.
We love Hasan.
I'm ready to die.
Not as a jam.
Not yet.
I knew this was gonna happen.
But I think because there are so many outlets now that, like, yes, there are tons of spaces where there can only be one of us that can occupy that space, and that super duper sucks. But what I think is important is that we're each creating our own stuff, and I think, like, with Two Dope Queens, Jess and I made it a point that we're primarily looking to book people of color, women, people from the LGBTQ plus community, and then we have room, there will be a white guy. And
White guys are
Main
balling.
Street is happy.
it's like, is this what's
Main Street is
on?
happy. White guys are getting it rough tonight, though.
Right, but
Let's give it up for the white guys in the room who came out.
they're so brave.
We had to do that.
But I
Some
think,
of our best friends are
right, and so
We all listen to Coldplay.
so I think that we make that a point, and that way we can celebrate everyone. And I know diversity words being used ad nauseum, but I think that is the only way that you can, like, bring about change. It's like we had this one comic on Nori Davis, and his brother is trans, and he had all this amazing material about having a trans brother, which was so smart and profound and great. And, like, but that's, like, not necessarily, like, he's not maybe going to be able to go on Colbert and talk about his trans brother, but he could talk about it on a podcast that might get as many listens as someone watching an episode of Colbert. So I think that there are ways you can move around and get your message out.
But let me push back and take it Muslim.
Yeah.
Muslims are literally killing each other. They do. I'm sorry, it sucks. And we know in the game, right? Like, who's here from Pakistan? My peoples, they breed. I'll give an example from my own ethnicity, share across. Like, I always joke that if you went to a Pakistani uncle, right, and he asked him, like, to give you a compliment, or an organ, he'd look at you and go, maybe I'll give you a kidney. I can live with one, right? Like, Pakistani, like, there's so many Pakistani kids and parents where literally I feel like they're taught that every time another Pakistani succeeds, an angel loses its wings. They can't stand another Pakistani winning because, I mean, there's reasons for it. Scarcity resources, they know the game, they know the hustle, and so they have to kill Hasan. He's an Indian, first of all. And second of all, I mean, you know, this type of mindset, and you guys, I think you guys are the exception. Like, this stuff exists within Muslim communities, that there can be only one. How do you
It
guys
exists in the
combat
black
that?
community, it exists in every
Yeah.
community that's, like, not white specifically, but I think when there are examples like Hasan, like Mo, like Negin, where you can see, like, oh, they're doing this, I could then also do this. Like, them doing this is gonna open the door for me to do X, Y, Z. I think it's not, it is still fairly dire, I think, in certain situations, but I do think there is more opportunity than there was even a decade ago.
So
I just do.
Absolutely.
I just do.
I mean, we started a comedy tour called Allah Made Me Funny. We started by Preacher Moss in 2004. He started by Preacher Moss actually in late 2001. He toured it by himself for a little bit, and then we joined together, and we started touring globally from 2005 to last year. We did 20 cities in the UK. It was like our last hurrah. But man, there's a lot of stand-up comedians all over the planet. Fear of a Brown Planet started because of Allah Made Me Funny. There's cats out of South Africa, Riyad Musa, I started out at Joey Lasdeen because of All of Me Funny. A big part of it was because of their massive stars in South Africa, big stars in Australia, throughout Europe. All kinds of comics are popping up because they saw me funny. That's why it's so important for us to continue to churn out our own content, whether you go indie, hip hop, underground, selling out different shows, what have you, and then next doing the Apollo in London. It's possible. You just have to do the work. You can't keep bitching like, oh, they have this and they have that. No, you just keep writing, man. Keep writing and keep producing. There's so many different outlets now where you can make it available on so many different platforms, and people will enjoy it and come to you.
But it is expensive. I mean, it's like you literally have to have some kind of safety net.
Excuse.
You do have to have a safety net. I feel I've had a safety net, which is why I've been able to do this.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Cornell
Like
University.
where I knew that if there, sorry?
Cornell University.
Right. No, I mean, I also had a day job for a long time. I mean, and like I also waited tables, and I was also, so like, I mean, yeah.
I didn't have shit.
But
I
it's
didn't
not
have any of it.
like,
It's just like you gotta want it. I mean, that's it. You gotta want it.
Yeah, you know what I'm so grateful for, man? Is that, and you know this from working with Dave, like, as a member of Brown America, I call it New Brown America, it's only possible because of Black America. Like, everything we have in this industry is only because of
The
look
lead won't flip. It's
at
too stationary, but I'm trying to flip it, but the lead
Look
won't.
But like, he works with Dave, right? Look at the, so this is gonna be a little niche, but just about comedy, but look at the Dave Chappelle analogy. Dave and Rock, I think, those two, their children, like the people that they've touched and influenced, I see like Gerard, Hannibal, Michael Che, all these guys were possible. They were like children's of, or cousins, you know what I mean? They were like in the lineage of that. They made that possible, like Rock and Chappelle basically breaking through in the early 90s, being non-Def Jam, high intellectual Black comedians. Nothing against the Def Jam guys, much respect to Bernie and Sed and all those guys, but them creating that family. And then you see the guys now that are part of their family tree. It's like, yeah, I could complain and be like, but I got nobody to look up to. It's like, man, I'm gonna look up to the guys that have a little bit more melanin than me, but have paved the way. It's there.
So those are the people we're listening to, right? Carlin, Seinfeld, Chris Rock, all of them. That's what we grew up with.
And also, the second layer to the cake is like, I've also gotten a little bit, I'm off the whole like, to the Desi people in the audience, we do a lot of like Bidai and Sharm. That's the way. So Bidai means to slap, and Sharm means to shame. You're bad. And a lot of times, I think people in the POC community do Bidai and Sharm strategies with white people, and that's not, to me. I'm like, dude, I got so much Bidai and Sharm as a kid. It didn't work. Like, I was just like, I'm a good kid. I'm not that bad. I'm a comedian, not a lawyer. But to me, I'm like, man, I have so many white friends that want to be allies, but every time they try to step out, they get bedived and sharmed out of trying to be allies. So I'm here to say, man, I'm not going to make fun of the way you dance or bedive or sharm. For real. Your position in this game matters. And I'm grateful for it. And I know it's uncomfortable. I'll do everything I can to help. Please don't be silent. I'll help you. But, because to come off the whole like, because I see it. I don't get involved in Facebook comments, but I see the comments of being like, man, I'm not a bad guy. Why do I gotta be guilty? And then you just shut off. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is when my dad used to like slap me and shame me into trying to do what he wanted me to do. And I'm like, all right, why don't we use like a peaceful plea? Like, let me extend my hand in allyship. Yeah, and you would extend your hand and like allyship and work on this together.
So I want to jump into this because I want to ask you about this because the
First of all, Badai is a hilarious sound.
Badai is
Badai. Badai. Use one longer like Bruce did. Badai.
Comedian putting it. Badai.
Put that on a shirt.
You'll get it.
What you're talking about is also a reflection of America right now. There are a lot of white Americans right now who are saying, listen, this privilege you guys all talk about, I'm not feeling it. I don't have the factory jobs anymore. I'm foreclosed. I'm not feeling it. So you guys keep beating me up when I want to be an ally, right? And so what does that olive branch look like? So for the mainstream allies in the audience, our friends, who want to help, straight up, how can they help us achieve the buffet table where you can have meatloaf next to Brianna?
Man, I've seen this before. Like, we're all familiar with this, no matter what race you're from. We've experienced same-team racism. The door closes, and then if you're Pakistani or whatever, all the uncles and aunties will shit on Indians. And they'll shit on Hindus or whatever, right? It's happened. Fucking bigotry behind our own closed doors. And we think like God's on our side because they're wrong. It's like, man, they're doing the same to us. Same-team racism happens all the time. So, to me, I'm like, when that door closes and you're having this same-team racism, I think every person should Trojan horse and be like, no, that's not happening. Like, I'm not allowing that. Like, that's not cool. You can't just make fun of those people. You can't say that about those people. It's not cool.
Equal standards.
Yeah.
So you want equal standards. That's what you're doing with people.
It's extremely aggressive when it comes to women trying to like go on stage and talk about who they're boning, you know, like that should be okay. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like
That's a fuck up, by the way. That's a Negin Farsad.
but you know, and someone asked me recently in an interview, like, do you get more hate from Muslims or from white people? And I was like, oh, that's such a good question. I actually think it's equal. And I get hate mail from both parties. That's something that hatred of me brings them together. But that's kind of a lovely part of it. You know, and I've gotten death threats, and you know, from both parties. And I think that you know, we need to really scale back the hostility against women. It is so. I was just in South Africa speaking at the United Nations. Anyways, it's not a big deal. And it was like so eye-opening to be among these diplomats from multiple countries and to be sexually harassed multiple times a day. I was like, what is happening? Like, at least it's better in the United States on that front. But what we have the chance of doing is bringing some of that ugly stuff from the mother country into here when it comes to women, and we can't let that through. You know what I mean? It's already rough being a lady. Let's not make any of that worse.
You have a chapter in the book how you deal with that. Okay, so I have 5-6 minutes to go through like 30 questions, which is awesome. But okay, last final questions. Let's do reverse casting, right? Let's do an Exodus and Gods of Egypt casting moment, right? And those are movies where white characters play. Yeah, Gerard Butler was a god of Egypt, just, you know, of course. But let's reverse it. If ethnicity played no role, we're just going on straight talent. What character, either fictional or real, or a character that you create, what's your ideal role that you love to play as a protagonist? Let's go down the line.
I'm trying to sell a TV show right now where I basically play a fictionalized version of myself. But I'm not a comic, so that's like the one difference. There's a lot of that right now. But yeah, I just want to play a fucking person. Like,
who's 32 years old.
Who's 32 years old, and I'm like looking for a hot dude to bone. Like, I want to fucking...
Bone has been mentioned twice, by the way, tonight. For those keeping the drinking game, for those who are taking a shot, for any time Bone is mentioned, it's 2.
But it's just like one of my favorite romantic comedies is When Harry Met Sally, which is like amazing. I love the banter. I'm all about talking. That's like my jam. And I'm like, why can't we just have a movie with 2 people of color?
That cafe scene.
They're just talking. That's so lit. Like, I just want to see fucking Sanaa Lathan and, I don't know, fucking John Cho having banter, getting like want to fuck, but they can't, so they gotta talk about potato salad. Like, I want to see that. That's awesome, and that should be out there.
And people will see it. There's a trilogy: Before Sunrise, Before Midnight, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. You need to be people of color version.
Yeah, I would love that. I just love seeing people talk, and I feel like for some reason Hollywood likes to act like only white people talk.
You're too busy eating chicken nuggets. You're too busy clapping.
Or it's like, oh my god, my son is like into drugs and he just got killed. Like, I don't want to play a slave. I will, if I never, like, I Give Birth to a Nation is like an important film, but there's also books. If you want to learn about Nat Turner, you can read a fucking book. Like, I don't need to see another black actor hanging from a goddamn abuse. I never need to see that ever again in my life. And I feel like there's this torture porn that happens with people of color. People are like, oh, that's a great work of art because I saw like a person of color suffer. And it's like, no, dude, that's just like you alleviating like your guilt by awarding that as like real art. And it's like, no, I don't know. So I just want to play like an
Romantic
everyday
lead?
Yeah! Romantic comedy!
Negin Farsad.
Captain Sully? Like, can I be the white savior? I would like to be the white savior.
Mustache or no? So you want to be brown savior?
Yeah, brown savior.
Okay, what's the catastrophe?
No, literally, I want to play that
You can do it. You can do it. Mo.
Man, I don't really have a preference as long as I'm not shooting other brown people in the movie. That's the one thing I don't want to do for sure, and I've not taken those auditions before, which has been most of the part. But I could play a wide variety of roles. I don't really have a preference towards one. But the first thing that pops in my head is Joe Pesci from Goodfellas. That sounds like, you rat motherfucker, you know, like that. It's like fun. Something in the vein like Snatch, like a comedy thriller, you know. Yeah,
What
you know,
role in Snatch?
Dennis Farina's role would be so much fun. Yeah, we're going to London. London. You know, fish, chips, cup of tea, bad food, worst weather, very
Since Dennis Farina's out of the game, casting agents, Mo Amer.
That's the kind of, I mean, I'd love to play anything that's just like fun and very character based, like really just, you know, pop in kind of character in film.
Inshallah.
Hasan.
I hope this character ends up happening, but I really like the Simon Baz character in Green Lantern.
Oh yeah.
Because Simon is a Muslim kid in Dearborn, and then he ends up, the ring chooses him because he saves humanity. And that'd be so cool to just see a Muslim person save humanity.
This is way too geeky, but he's headlining the new Green Lantern's comic with Latina Green Lantern. Don't ask me why I know this, is because I read it.
Yeah.
And there's also Miss Marvel,
Yep.
Jimmy Wilson, and Sana Amanat. Sana, stand up right there for Marvel. Sana's actually, I think, what, creative director or something? Amazing title at Marvel. Yes, it's happening, it's streaming. God's watching. Creative director of content and character development. She helped Ta-Nehisi get on Black Panther. Alright. They gave me the stop talking, but as we open up the Q&A, I'm gonna do a final question. And you guys, he's gonna be handheld mic, people in the corner. Alright, so I'm gonna throw this question out, you guys are lined up. We love brevity, we wanna make love to this mistress called brevity. I'm sure there'll be some uncle who gets up and gives a speech. I love your speech. That's it for a Facebook post. Let's keep it Q&A, uncles and aunties. And so line up, and there's a free handheld mic. But last question, and on a hopeful note, you guys said, Hasan, we're making you work for your money, man. You guys said, you know, you grew up.
Get paid?
I'm just like you guys looked up to people, right, which ushered in this generation. So you guys are making it, you guys are trailblazers, you guys have the privilege, you guys have the conch. Be shape Yoda Oracle for the young generation. You know, mistakes that you made, the triumphs that you had, what do you want to see from the young millennials 10 years from now? What advice do you want to give them? Who kind of come up in your shadow, in your footsteps?
So I've been doing this 8 years, which is not that long, but I would say the biggest thing that I've learned is this industry is very good at making you believe you are nothing without them. That if you don't get cast on this TV show, you won't have a career. If you don't get this writing job, you'll never work. That they are your only option. And for a really long time, I was like butting my head against the wall, and I was getting frustrated, and I like wanted to quit because I'm like, I'm going out for MTV stuff, but I'm not MTV great. I'm going out for these other things, but I'm too old, or I'm too black, or what have you. And so the biggest thing that I learned is just that you are your only option. not them. You can create your own opportunities, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a web series, whether it's just stand-up, whether it's having a blog and writing. It's gonna take longer, but you will feel so powerful and you will create power. And I would say starting my blog back in 2012, but then also starting the podcast with Jess, like the podcast has done more for my career than any casting, anything where some exec picked me for something. And it was all self-generated. So I just think you have to forget the industry and realize that you should trust yourself first. Because if you want to have a career, industry is not interested in careers. They're interested in what you can make for them today, and then while they're looking for someone else to make the money for tomorrow. So if you want to have a career, you just got to do it yourself and believe that you will outlast the bullshit.
Great advice.
I feel like I spent a lot of years in sketch comedy troupes with a bunch of white guys pretending that I was like a dude, and I had a dick, and I was writing about video games or whatever, and I was like, just because I was just trying to fit in, and like I was like, maybe I can pass, and what they can tell, right, if you're a lady, and so I feel like my first piece of advice would be to like lean into your actual identity. It's fine, it's gonna be okay. There's gonna be some rough patches, probably some death threats, but it comes with the territory. And I think I spent a lot of time also like just apologizing for being alive, and be like, hi, I'm sorry, I have a script, would you? Well, you know what? Never mind. I'm gonna go. I'm sorry, and like I did that a lot, and I feel like especially women have a hard time kind of like putting themselves out there and be like, oh no, by the way, I have a script that's going to change your fucking life and you should read it now. You know what I mean? Like, just really get in there and say it. Like, so many people do that. So those are my two.
For me, it's just like, be super real, be authentic to yourself, number one. Number two is that work super hard at your craft. And don't give a shit literally about anything else. Because money, everything will come shortly after. If you become really, really talented at your craft, you'll be undeniable, and eventually you will get work and you'll get everything that you want. You worry about certain things. Don't let money be the excuse. That's what Dave taught me. I was like, oh, I want to make this, I want to do that, but I don't have money. He's like, don't let the money stop you. And when I started driving, I filmed my special at the Warner Theater. I didn't know where the money was coming from, but I booked everybody, and I had everything, and it was like a dope shoot with Jay Chapman, like one of the best in the game and everything else. And the money just arrived on Thursday, just by sheer tenacity. I mean, like a few days before we shot the special. So I'm telling you, man, if you believe in yourself, everybody else will start rolling with you. Work hard at your craft, and everything will come in line, I promise.
I just got a cliff notes what they said. That's exactly what it is. When he did his special, I tell him all the time, I was like, yo, you guys are pirates. Like, you did this on your own without anybody's assistance or help. They put up the money, did it themselves, all independent. It was great. And so be a pirate. And then the second is just have the audacity to work twice as hard and ask for twice as much. I think you're worth it.
Absolutely.
Questions, by the way? No, step up. You got a question? I do love it. But I just want to say, I can be sincere. I've known these guys for years, and I can say these guys have worked their butts off. Nothing was handed to them. I met Hasan when I was a law student, and you were a sophomore. And it was Tarawih prayers at UC Davis. And Hasan came up with your homie. Who's your friend? The guy from Imran. He goes, hey man, that's that scary guy who wrote the play. He looks hella serious. Let's go talk to him. And Hasan came up to me after Tarawih prayers. I don't know, I think I was like zoning out or something. And Hasan's like, man, I just want to say, like, how'd you do it? And I'm like, your hair is amazing. But fast forward, this guy hustled. This guy went from like gig after gig, moved to LA, like the community shit on him. His parents like kind of weren't that happy that I wasn't a lawyer. His father met me 4 years ago when we were doing that caravan in Sacramento. This is like right after he had the MTV show, right? What was it called? Yeah, philosophy. So he was on MTV and his father comes up to me and goes, Berta, you became an attorney. Give guidance to Hasan. And I'm like, he's hosting his own show. And he's like, but still the law degree. So these guys worked and they built up the equity. And Mo got shit from Muslims, right? Allah made me funny when you guys did that. Like death threats from within Muslim communities. Muslims can't be funny. They got crap. Negin's gone through crap. She auditioned for my play. She was just too good for it, which is why. And I just met Phoebe, who's down and dope. So give it up for these guys for being authentic. Wow, old school. All right, people still write. Don't forget, Suzanne is closing. 2 questions. Don't know what that means. Power. All right, so we only have 2 questions. Make these questions amazing. Uncle Saab wearing the bow tie. Give it up for the bow tie. Ask the question, sir. You got the first question. Make it amazing.
First question. Go for it.
Okay, so
Go for it.
it's incredible. It's really something very thoughtful for Nikki for this kind of unwanted attention that we've been getting for the last 15 years. So I think there's a great opportunity for anyone, and I've been wondering why Muslims are not writing enough. The reality is absurd and bizarre, and Muslim reality somehow been forced into this kind of a corner where anyone who's an aspiring writer, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. I know what you guys think of that. You see this kind of an environment where we have something like Trump rising to surface, creates also an opportunity for the
Does the ascension of Trump and the backlash create opportunities for people like us to rise and fill in the vacuum?
Okay, I'll just tell you really quick, I did something, I was testing Trump's policies. I went on the streets of New York with MoveOn.org, and I conducted what I call the bacon test. And I basically asked people, are you Muslim? And they would say no, and then I would say, prove it! And they'd have to eat from this cold pile of bacon. And then if they didn't eat the bacon, they would have to sign a Muslim registry, of course.
Give Trump ideas.
This is how you implement his policies. Of course, some people were like, I'm Jewish, and so I actually don't eat bacon. And I'd be like, well, you're Muslim. So Trump has given me a lot of opportunities in testing his policy positions, if we want to be generous and call it that. And you can see that stuff on MoveOn.org. But it's it's endless. We need to be vigilant and always point that out, and comedy's the best way to do it.
I mean, how can he not be giving his content? It's Trump. I mean, if he's giving late night television material, obviously people like us would definitely be able to comment on it and do what we need to do with it. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we were touring All Over Funny in Holland, there's a politician there named Geert Wilders, who, if some of you are familiar with him, the guy was like, I am not against Islam, I'm not against Muslims, my fight is with Islam. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's the same. So it's just yeah, of course it gives us material, it gives us things to build off of, and ignorance always exists, man. Always exists. Hopefully the majority knows what it is and everybody's united there. But there's people that just don't get information and are easy to prey upon, and I've seen it touring the South. That was where I started, as a 14-year-old kid touring the South. That's what I did.
To answer your question, from all sectors, from tech, from literature, theater, there has been opportunity. And what Hasan was saying, there have been allies, people of goodwill from the mainstream and other ethnics who've reached out. I've seen this in the past year, even Pen America, Suzanne and I were talking about this. We were talking about this a year and a half ago, and it's become so much more topical and necessary now. So it is a catastrophe at times, it's a crisis, but it's also an opportunity to step up and tell your story. And I want to echo what Hasan said, reach out your hand with goodwill across the aisle, and you will see a lot of allies and partners of goodwill who want to make sure that the world doesn't burn in 2017. Final question, make it amazing. There's a hand up right there. There's 2, you guys get to choose.
There's 3 now.
Hannah with the mic. You get to choose.
She's got one right there. She's at dead center.
Her friend's helping her.
Alright, I'm gonna project.
Sorry.
So my question is actually for the women, and it's about how do you deal with the...
He was very upset by that. Very subtly upset by that question.
I just thought you guys were too comfortable.
Go for it, go for it.
How do you deal with the intersectionality of race and gender? So I'm a Pakistani woman, and how do you deal with the fact that being a female brown doctor is very different from being a male brown doctor? And those things are valued extremely differently. So how do you address the gender discrimination within your identity group without playing into white savior complex that's sometimes often based on these tropes about gender discrimination in brown, Muslim, and not Muslim identity groups?
Very easy thesis question to answer. Cornell University. Let's use that Ivy League education right now.
I need a blue book to answer that. Holy fuck balls. I did not go to Ivy League. I went to Pratt Institute. Okay, so cool, awesome. So look, stand-up is 98.7% straight cis white dudes. And someone's like, yep, I did the numbers on that, that's correct. And a lot of those dudes are trash. And just straight up, like a lot, this is, the reason why I say this is I've talked about this with many female comedians, and just straight up across the board, we will go into a green room and it'll be mostly dudes, and they will not talk to us. And they will go out and we'll have a good set, and we come back to the green room, and then all of a sudden they want to talk to us. There's the assumption that we don't belong, that we're not good, that we shouldn't be on the show. And so it sucks. It's really hard. There have been days I've cried about it because it fucking sucks. It's like, I don't want to be made to feel like the other, and they are doing that to me regardless. So I think when you're in that situation, you just have to have your support group. Like, I do this thing where I have like Black Girl Brunch, and I'll just get like me and like 10 other Black female comedians. It could be stand-up, sketch writers, improv, actors. And we all just like hang out in a space where we're not made to feel like we don't belong, where we're not made to feel like we're not as funny. We can have, I've done shows where I've had great sets, and they won't talk to me, because I did a good job. But if I did a bad job, you wouldn't talk to me either. So it's one of those things where it's like, you can't win, so you just have to find your people that get you, and that will ride for you. And those are the people that everyone else, they'll go by the wayside, because you're a doctor? Wait, what's your profession?
Doctor in training.
Yeah, you're gonna be a fucking doctor. You're gonna be Meredith Grey at the hospital, and these fucking ding-dongs are gonna have to answer you. I see it. You're gonna be their boss, and they're gonna fucking hate it. I don't care, you're gonna make more money than them, and they're gonna have to eat it.
Negin, you mind if I got permission from Powers to take one more question? Alright.
That was great. Phoebe, I gotta give it a half.
Yo, Phoebe's on fire.
Plus one. Retweet that hashtag.
Straight up flamethrowers.
First and foremost, thank all of you for giving those of us who are looking for someone to be inspired by. Seriously, thank you. Because it's true, we don't have anybody to look to. We don't. And the few of you who are there are extraordinarily inspiring and hopeful for us.
Don't forget Muhammad Ali.
Who could ever forget Muhammad Ali? And we talked about being brown on that stage, and being Muslim, and being female, and being exoticized, and being erased. But we haven't talked about being queer. And you don't have to stretch a hand and to lend support and to have solidarity. And it's quite clear to those of you who have talked about gender and have talked about race and have talked about not reprimanding white friends for being white to stand for us. What about straight friends being reprimanded for not being queer And what about brown folk who don't know how to handle brown, Muslim, comedian, artist, literary folk who are also queer and are trying to figure out how to be unapologetic? What do you have to say to us?
Hasan? It's because, I'll tell you what, I'm not being an asshole for once. Hasan, with another good friend of ours, Reza Aslan, and remember we had this conversation before we published it, did this op-ed proactively addressing that question as best as he could. He got a lot of heat for it, but he did this before the Paul shooting, before anyone asked him to. So that's why I'm handing the baton to you.
Yeah, so when the SCOTUS decision came out, I was just in these digital streets, and I noticed a lot of people from my own community not being like, yo, this is a game changer. Like, the fact that gay marriage is being acknowledged as legal is incredible. It's an amazing thing. A rising tide lifts all boats. And as a person that's from a marginalized community, we should stand and celebrate and accept and love our LGBTQ brothers and sisters outside of our own community, within our own community. We need to big up this and not be quiet today. Because the SCOTUS decision was a major, they're gonna make a movie about it. Like, it's historic, it's huge. Plessy versus Ferguson, it's in the Hall of Fame decisions. And it was straight up crickets in the Muslim community on it. It was just like, we're just gonna sit this one out. And then when a bombing happens and a hate crime happens, we're gonna be like, come on! Like, I'm like, nah, son, we gotta stand up and be like, this is dope. Then I got a lot of people in the Muslim community that were just like, yo, you're whack, you're a sellout, nobody da-da-da-da-da. And I heard all that stuff, and I called Waj before, I was like super stressed. I was like, I'm gonna let my parents down. They're gonna get it from aunties and uncles in the community. I'm gonna be the bad son again. And I still did it with Reza. Reza's far more brave than me. We wrote it together and we put it out. And it was so cool to see my friends at the mosque and all that stuff. I had a lot of friends come up to me. They're like, hey, I am gay. Thank you for writing that letter. I haven't come out to the community or to my parents, but thank you, man. I really, really, really appreciate it. And I know there's more that we can do. There's more that I can do, because I fully don't understand all the complexities of the issue. But I just had to be like, I had to call it for what it was and be like, I support this, and we should all support this. And there's a long way to go.
Extensively in the South and done stand-up in the South. The one thing that I always found was people were never like, no, we love the Muslims, but we hate the Mexicans, or we love Mexicans, but we hate gay people. It was always like, all of these groups, they just generally hate all of them. You know what I mean? There was never like, if you say you're Muslim, you're basically gay, you're also Mexican, you're also Asian, you know what I mean? Literally doesn't matter to those. So this is, you turn the dial and you are that thing to whoever, because bigotry is not super nuanced, you know? So it's patently absurd when we don't fight for other people's fights.
Can I say something? I think we're really there. Straight up, what Hasan said was, certain Muslim communities in America, and I don't think I'm exaggerating, we don't even talk about premarital heterosexual dating. Forget about fornication, boning, sorry, the chosen word for today. Drink, said it again. Premarital heterosexual dating is not even talked about. You know, like 5 years ago we used to say, Hasan, were you on a date? I was just talking to someone. And then 5 years ago we mentioned dating, right? And so no one has sex before marriage, by the way. No Muslim has sex before marriage. It never happened before. If it's illegitimate sex and the baby comes somehow like 6 months after the marriage, it was just like Allah's will. But the point I'm trying to say is, I mean, we have deep skeletons in the closet, literally and figuratively, that we don't talk about. But speaking about crises and tragedy, which brings about opportunities, when the Pulse shooting happened and 49 people were killed by Omar Mateen, that was a moment where we saw both young generation and the older generation say, wow, we have to confront the reality of our brothers and sisters who are deeply in the closet, who are being killed, not just for being Muslim, but also for being LGBT. And there's also, within DC and Virginia, a group called Masjid, MASGID, a collection of LGBTQ Muslims and allies who, at the very least, you had LGBTQ Muslims speaking out as protagonists of their own narratives, both as Muslims and as members of the LGBTQ community. And that's something which, it's a long way to go, but it's a really powerful step that I could not have imagined, at least 2 years ago. It would never happen. So we need to do more work. That's just my editorial take on
But
it.
it cannot be reactionary. That's what's
That's
bothering me. It's like the pulse shooting happened, and then all my friends, by the way, this is you gotta drop more of these gems, Waj, that you did to me on the phone. He was like, the problem with our community, it's no different than the evangelical community. So it's like the pulse shooting happens, and then a bunch of evangelical Sunday school friends of ours are just like, go donate blood. It's like, yeah, dude, say that shit 6 months before the shooting happens. Don't do this stuff after the fact. Don't be reactionary with it. Throw down when it counts, when it matters, when you're not gonna get props for it. Fucking stand up, man. And just do it then. Don't do it after the fact. That's what always bothers me, man.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
If a hate crime happens at a synagogue or whatever, say, God forbid, some crazy brown dude shoots up a synagogue or whatever, do we have to, the day after, be like, we love our Jewish brothers and sisters? Dude, say that before. Have it be an intrinsic part of your personal agenda.
Eat a bagel with schmear before.
It's do that before. You know what I mean?
And based upon your Islamic and American values.
Yeah.
So you're not a hypocrite.
You've dropped some gems on your Facebook statuses about this.
Yeah, we do what we can.
Yeah.
Give it up to this squad.